You'll have to forgive me. The title is a little bit morbid, but this is where my head's at, and I want to be honest about it. Sort of in recent events, I won't get too into personal stuff. I've thought about death. Death has sort of feel like it's been looming in the back corner of a room for maybe like 7 or 8 years now. Probably closer to eight-ish years now. It's been looming. It's a thought that I've had that's been more prominent, right? And I've sort of thought about um, a quote recently, which is the title of this episode. The only way to celebrate death is with a birth. And I had a friend say that too, where it sort of marked different chapters in our careers, where the death of something then turned into the catalyst for the birth of the next thing. And I've sort of thought more about the way that that sentiment sort of applies in my life and sort of where I've seen a death happen and a birth of something else sort of took its place. Um, and I think where I'm at currently is sort of a chapter right at that cusp. I'm right at the end of it, but I'm at that cusp where a lot of death happened, both in the literal sense of people passing, transitioning into the next life, and then others that are deaths of, maybe certain habits or certain relationships that then turned into the birth of something more productive or for a more positive thing to come in. And normally when this sort of event happens in my life, it's never the most like it's usually like one or two things, I guess. It's never this whole wave of people or things or activities, that sort of thing. It's always like maybe one thing swaps for another thing or two things swaps for another thing. And it's sort of put in a perspective where it's like, maybe you're not religious, but I'm going to use God in this context. Don't f***ing play with God. I think there's certain that's just like, you know, bros got mapped out for you. And it's like you're not seeing it right away. And then the moment it clicks is where it all comes in. Right? And God is just the way that I've quantified it. Because I don't know how else to, right? And I think a lot of those deaths have sort of signified, at least this way it's different because, you know, it's big deaths against big births of things. And my God, it's a beautiful thing. It's bad to go through it. Again, I'm at the end of it. I was feeling this way kind of all October. There was deaths happening, which spawned into births and that sort of thing. I'm at the end of it, right? And what have I learned from this? Why am I talking about this even? You know, I really feel like I think it's like a necessary evil in life. Obviously, nothing deserves to die. Nobody deserves to die. Of course not. But it's there's definitely certain things where it's like it's time. You gotta go, or you gotta maybe you're that death in somebody's life. Maybe you take an exit stage left, sort of thing. Not that you pass away, but you get what I mean. And I think it's something that needs to happen in order for you to progress fully in the way that you want to. And I kind of talked about sort of that sentiment in the last episode of like just being stubborn about things. And I think the death of a lot of different habits sort of inspires um, different things to come out or different births to happen. And that's why I say, like, I've seen a lot of it now because I'm seeing the death. I guess maybe I'll give you a career example. I'm seeing the death of a lot of equipment that I don't necessarily use anymore. I'm giving it new life by selling it to somebody else, or I'm passing the torch in a sense. And, I think that's, again, it's a very bittersweet thing, and it's not something that you want to see die. Um, but it's sort of representative of, okay, I'm passing the torch to someone else, and this is going to give it new life, and this is going to give myself new life, and it's going to allow me to progress in the way that I need to, right? And so it's a lot happening at the same time. It's a lot that I'm thinking about. It's a lot that needs to happen. It's a lot of moving things that for a moment in time is like a little overwhelming. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that this is happening. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think in the moment it felt awful. I mean, because personal life wise, also, like, it was just. I feel like the Grim Reaper was around the corner with his scythe, just like coming after me for something. I don't know what, but he's looking for something, And it feels awful. But I think that's also. I want to say that I want to continue to say that it's a positive thing because it's growing pains. It's you sort of, growing out of your old self and growing into somebody that maybe you wouldn't otherwise expect to turn into. And I know I don't want to see these deaths. I know I want everything to be the same forever. Maybe not really, actually, but there's certain things that I'm holding on to where I'm like, no, I don't want to let go of this. No, I don't want this to change. No, I don't, you know. So many different things where I didn't want it to change, but I know it had to. And in the moment, it's the worst thing that can ever happen. But after the fact is where I saw this like beautiful blossoming thing out of it. For example, I shot a music video on 16 millimeter film recently. And that was like kind of the first music video I had done on my Bolex. In between that, it was like little short films or commercials, or like it was like a second camera that was like another type of media that was used for the project. And my God, was it a beautiful thing to shoot exclusively on the Bolex. I've missed challenging myself in that way. And again, it's the growing pains of things. It's not being so sure of what's going to happen, what that light looks like at the end of the tunnel. But I've told myself more, like, I want to shoot more on film, and I want to own more film cameras. I think currently I own more film cameras than digital cameras. I bought my first Polaroid this year. That's another thing. I'm looking at it right now. I had never owned a Polaroid because I guess I was like scared of it or something. I don't know. And my God, was that a beautiful thing, right? And what am I even saying? I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but all this to say, I think change is a necessary evil. That's what I'll leave with. And I think the best sort of way that we can, I guess, cope with change, if you're not a big fan of change, is, taking it day by day, giving yourself a little bit of grace and love, as I said in the last episode. And I think I've given myself more grace in that sense in dealing with these growing pains, working on larger productions, working on, sort of myself and sort of what the future of my personal life and my career looks like. A lot of things have to change in order to get to where I want to be. And in turn, unfortunately, a lot of death needs to happen. But in a beautiful way, birth is also a key element in this as well. Um, and that's all I want to leave with. I know it's kind of, again, apologies, it is a bit of a shorter episode, but I do want to ease myself into the rhythm of creating again and easing myself into the rhythm of like talking to myself again. I feel like a lot of muscle memory has come back, but it's still like a lot I got to work on. So, give me a little bit of grace, give me a little bit of patience. I could use it, especially right now. But yes, hopefully we'll talk soon. Hope you've enjoyed this little bite-sized episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.